Which is better, the Umidigi X or the Umidigi A5 Pro? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. Hi everyone, this is Kevin here, coming at you with my comparison between the Umidigi X and Umidigi A5 Pro. Now the Umidigi X is very new, it was recently launched, and you can buy it on Amazon for $1.99 after applying the included $20 coupon. And the Umidigi A5 Pro is available for $119.99, and you can get that price by applying a $10 off coupon on Amazon. Now definitely make sure to check out the links in the video description to see the most up-to-date pricing for both devices. Now there are many similarities and differences between these two phones. They're of course made by the same manufacturer, which is Umidigi. Now the A5 Pro is definitely supposed to be kind of the lower end sibling to the Umidigi X, but I'm really interested to see by the time this video is over which phone you think is actually more worth it. Now with the Umidigi X, we're getting a 6.35 inch display. It's AMOLED at 720p and features a 19.5:9 aspect ratio. And the Umidigi A5 Pro has a 6.3 inch display at 1080p with a 19.5:9 aspect ratio. So we get 1080p with the A5 Pro versus 720p with the Umidigi X, but the X definitely has a better looking display since it is AMOLED. So it's a lot brighter, more vibrant looking display, and personally I do prefer it, even though it is 720p versus 1080p. But the actual designs of both devices are pretty similar. They both feature a teardrop notch. They both have a little bit of a thicker chin at the bottom here. But side by side, we're getting about the same amount of screen real estate. So up top here with the Umidigi X, we have a 16 megapixel front-facing camera versus the A5 Pro, which has an 8 megapixel front-facing camera. With the Umidigi X, we're getting 128 gigabytes of internal storage with SD card expansion, and with the A5 Pro, we're getting 32 gigs of storage with SD card expansion. So about a quarter of the storage internally with Umidigi A5 Pro. Now, neither of these two phones feature wireless charging. They both do have fingerprint sensors, but the fingerprint sensor with the Umidigi X is actually built into the display, which is pretty awesome, works really well. Whereas on the A5 Pro, the fingerprint sensor is on the back. So that's a very quick fingerprint sensor with the A5 Pro. So it's really up to your personal preference whether you prefer it to be in the display or on the rear of the phone. So let me know in the comment section below what you actually prefer. Now with both phones, you are getting a triple camera setup. With the Umidigi X, we're getting a 48 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel depth sensing camera, and an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera. And with the Umidigi A5 Pro, we're getting a 16 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel depth sensing camera, and an 8 megapixel wide angle camera. So great to see that both phones do feature wide angle cameras. Definitely one of my favorite features in 2019 to find with a device, especially with a budget phone, because that's a lot less common with those. But you can see the difference here. So this is with the wide angle on, and you really can fit a lot more content here in the display. Let's do this as well with the A5 Pro. So you can see here how much more fits in with that wide angle compared to the normal mode. I think it's a nice feature to have, definitely a big fan of it, and glad that Umidigi did decide to include it with both phones. Now both phones feature 4 gigabytes of RAM, but they do have different processors. So with the Umidigi X, we get the MediaTek Helio P60 processor, and with the A5 Pro, we get the Helio P23. Now I did run an Antutu benchmark test with both phones so that you can get a good idea of the scores here for them. And with the Umidigi X, we get an overall score of 168,710, and with the Umidigi A5 Pro, we get a score of 99999. Definitely better performance overall with the Umidigi X based off of these scores, and pretty much in all categories, the X is the better phone of the two. So interesting to see there. Now video recording with both devices maxes out at 1080p at 30 frames per second. We get a 4,150 milliamp hour internal battery with both devices, so very impressive. And they both run a stock version of Android 9 Pie. So if you're really into stock Android with no bloatware, you're definitely going to like these devices. Now that we've talked a lot about the specifications of the two phones, let's take a closer look at the hardware. So they do have a lot of similarities design-wise. So they both have a metal band running around the sides of them. However, on the left side, on the Umidigi X, we have nothing. And on the Umidigi A5 Pro, we have the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card. Then on the right, both phones have the power button and volume button, but then on the right, on the Umidigi X, we have that slot for the SD card and SIM card. Then on the top of the two phones on the Umidigi X, we have the noise-canceling microphone and 3.5mm headphone jack, and there is nothing on the Umidigi A5 Pro. Then on the bottom of the two devices, we have microphones on both, we have speakers on both, but on the Umidigi X, we have USB-C for charging and data transfer, whereas on the Umidigi A5 Pro, we have micro USB, which is a bit disappointing, and on the Umidigi A5 Pro, we do have a 3.5mm headphone jack. Then on the back of the two phones, they both feature kind of a glossy finish here, but definitely different colors. Now you can actually get the Umidigi X in this color that you can see here with the A5 Pro, so if you choose to go that route, you definitely can. I'm definitely a big fan though of this black and red color on the Umidigi X, but you can also get the Umidigi A5 Pro in charcoal gray. So there really is a color for everyone. But I do like the overall build of both devices. They both feel decently premium with good quality materials, despite them both being budget devices. Now for this next test, we're going to be doing a decibel test. So I have a decibel meter right here. I'm going to be playing the first 7 seconds of the same video on both devices at max volume, and we're going to see which one can get the loudest. So let's get started.
Hi everyone, this is Kevin here, and in this video, we're going to be talking about one of the newest features from Visible called...
So we got a max rating here on the Umidigi X of 108.
This is Kevin here, and in this video, we're going to be talking about one of the newest features from Visible.
Okay, and it looks like with the A5 Pro, we got a score of 109.7. So a little bit louder on the Umidigi A5 Pro. However, just by playing these two side by side here, there's no doubt that we are getting much better sounding speakers with the Umidigi X. The speakers are kind of tinny on the Umidigi A5 Pro at full volume, but you don't really get that with the Umidigi X. Let's now do a speed test comparison between these two devices. We're going to start by pulling up the cameras. So 1, 2, 3, go. And it looks like the X was quicker at pulling up the camera. Let's now go to Google Chrome. 1, 2, 3, go. And definitely in this test, the X was quicker at pulling up Chrome. A lot quicker, actually. Let's go to Yahoo. 1, 2, 3, go. The X is quicker at pulling up Yahoo. We'll go to Engadget. 1, 2, 3, go. And you can see side by side here too how much brighter the Umidigi X's display is since it is AMOLED. We'll now do some scrolling. Very smooth scrolling on the X and pretty smooth as well on the A5 Pro. Let's go to this webpage. 1, 2, 3, go. Looks like the X is quicker at pulling up the web page as well. So I'm really interested to know what you think about these two phones. Definitely with an $80 price difference, you're going to have to consider whether or not it's worth paying the extra money to get the Umidigi X over the A5 Pro. But there really aren't too many benefits with going with the A5 Pro over the X. It seems like overall you are getting better camera quality with the X. You are also getting a AMOLED display, which is something you don't get with the A5 Pro. But with the A5 Pro, you do get 1080p, which you don't get with the X since it is 720p. But then with the X, you're getting a much better processor. So there are a lot of benefits with getting the X over the A5 Pro, and I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to your budget. If you can justify paying $199, then I probably would go with the X instead. But the A5 Pro is certainly a very competitive device for just $119.99. So let me know in the comment section below what you think about these two devices, and definitely take a look at the links in the video description to pick them up on Amazon and to see the most up-to-date pricing for them on that site. But this is Kevin here, this is the Umidigi X, this is the Umidigi A5 Pro, and I will see you in the next video.